something that made me say, how did Texas A&M go from the greatest recruiting class ever in 2022 to barely making the top 15 in the recruiting rankings in 2023? Was it really about the number of recruits, the size of the class? Question mark. And Andrew, I'm going to just tee you up because just talking to you before the show, I think you and I are on different sides of the aisle here, and I don't think there's anything wrong with that. But I'll let you take the first stab at.
Well, Coop, I know you're going to come in here. You're going to point out that the number 15 ranked recruiting class is still a very talented group. The gap between 16 and 15 is quite significant. So I understand that side of the argument, but I think the common fan, to steal a phrase from our buddy Josh Pate, a casual, right?
The casual.
The casual is probably wondering how Jimbo Fisher signs what was the greatest haul ever one year and then stumbles down the stretch, and they pulled off some late flips there. Raymond Cottrell's the guy that got in the boat after the buzzer. Ruben Owens was obviously a big one, but you remove some of those guys, and it's a class that even falls closer to 20 if we're playing with the class calculator. So, I wrote down a ton of different things about why I think Texas A&M took a step back. We can get into the transfers and the bad apples, as you want to call it, in a little bit. But I just want to point out some things. Remember, Texas A&M had a major coaching change prior to the 2022 season. Mike Elko out, DJ Durkin in. Elko went to Duke. Duke just had one of its greatest seasons ever. We've talked about it, the Oyster Boys, for a while. Just we love what Mike Elko is doing from a recruiting standpoint at Duke. And I'm not saying he was the key cog in that elite group for the Aggies, but you're removing a defensive coordinator who wore a variety of different hats. There was also some more coaching changes for Texas A&M prior to that season kicking off. Go back to the first week of August, right before that preseason camp. Remember, Jimbo kind of shuffled that offensive staff. Damian Craig he took over at quarterback, James Coley to wide receiver, Darrell Dickey to tight end. I don't know. That seems like a little of a weird audible. And remember that audible would have came right after their big July barbecue party. I also looked at the official visits. Aggies brought in 31 spring and summer official visitors. So that's guys that came in March or April or June. 31 guys. They signed just 5 of them, right? Signed just 5 of them. One of them was a punter. Our guy, Tyler White, he's a stud. 4-star punter. First 4-star punter in 24/7 sports history. But I don't know. I just think there was some changes behind the scenes, right? And then you get to the season. Texas A&M goes 5-7. They lose 6 straight. Okay. That's going to make it hard to recruit. And then the one loss I think that really sticks out is that one to Appalachian State, which was before that big losing streak. So I got some other stuff written down, but to me, I think it was the changing and restructuring of staffs. I think that played a factor in how things went in the spring and how they went in the summer. I mean, you bring in 31 official visitors and you get just 5 of them. Like it's not good.
You make a good point with the staff turnover. The other one that I would say, Marshall Malkow used to head up the recruiting for Jimbo Fisher in College Station. He also departed and is now in Eugene with Dan Lanning in Oregon. Obviously, we're big fans of what they're doing. I bring him up. I don't typically bring up guys behind the scenes in the personnel side because it's like I've been in that position, and I'm not saying I'm exclusively it, but sometimes a lot of those things that are happening are outside of your control. You're really just a facilitator, but a facilitator, especially at a program like Texas A&M, it's important. You have to have alignment, especially between the program and the collective, in terms of A&M being as aggressive as they are in the NIL space. That structure is important. You talked about Mike Elko, right, getting the head coaching opportunity at Duke. I think those are all good points. For me, I expected some type of drop off from Texas A&M after this 2022 class, not only because of the quality of talent, but the quantity of talent. We're talking about these guys signing 30 players. So naturally, your needs are going to be a little bit different. You're not going to sign 30 players in consecutive classes unless you're really trying to turn that roster over, and that would be more earlier in a head coach's tenure than where Jimbo Fisher is right now, a little bit more established. And you look at A&M, and the reason I bring it up, you kind of brought up my counterpoints before, but like, you're looking at A&M right now, the classes in front of them, Florida, Penn State, USC. We've heaped a lot of praise on both those programs in Florida and Penn State. We like the job that they've done. Behind them, also heaped a lot of praise on South Carolina. I know this might be a little bit of foreign territory for them. We talked about it, I think it was right after signing day, how there was a big, people look at the rankings and I think they take a step back and they say, oh, this team is 15, this team is 16. But if you look at the point differential, I think that kind of paints a little bit of a different story. You look at Texas A&M, only 1 point separates them and Florida. Only 2 points separate them and Penn State, so on and so forth. The big jump comes with Clemson at 11. So you can kind of pod USC at 12, Penn State at 13, Florida at 14, A&M at 15 together. And then there's another drop off. And then there's South Carolina at 16, 13 points separates South Carolina and Texas A&M between the 15th and 16th spot. A&M only signed 19 prospects. South Carolina signed 24. So in terms of the quality of talent that Texas A&M is bringing in, I mean, we can go down the line here, but a lot of guys that we like, Ruben Owens, Chase Basanis, Micah Tease, who was a guy that we really liked in the process, Jaden Platt, who they flipped from Stanford, Colton Thomason, who had a solid week in San Antonio. David Hicks was a big surprise, right? Everybody thought he was leaning towards Oklahoma. Dalton Brooks, Bravion Rogers. We can kind of go down the line here, and I'll give it to you. I mean, it's not resembling the quantity or quality of the class the year before, but I think that was expected. That being said, if I'm an A&M fan, I'm not panicking, but I'm also sitting here saying, hey, listen, we're very capable. We just had the highest ranked recruiting class in college football history. If you want to make the argument that they should have been closer to the top 10, closer to Clemson than they are to USC, I'm completely on board with that. So I think the answer for me is somewhere in the middle. That's what I would say. And I think if you're A&M, if you want to get to that national championship standard, obviously there's a lot of on-field issues, but you got to continue to recruit with urgency. They obviously did that in 2022. That being said, this is not like the 15th ranked recruiting class is still a very good class, and there's a lot of things to be excited about if you're an Aggies fan, in my opinion. You look at 2022, there's some guys that have already departed, but, Evan Stewart, bright spot, LT Overton, bright spot, same with Shamar Stewart, everything they brought in on the defensive line. You found your quarterback of the future in Connor Wigman, right? Denver Harris, Chris Marshall, both those guys out, Jacoby Matthews, Anthony Lucas out, but like they played a lot of young guys last season. So if there is a silver lining in the year that they had on the field last year for me is that they played a lot of these young guys, and they got to learn which of these guys were going to be contributors, which of these guys were going to be the epitome of what they wanted off the field as well. And I think they followed it up with a solid class that had a chance to be better. But I certainly didn't expect them in the top 5. But 6 through 12 was kind of the landing spot for me, and they landed a little bit outside of that. So I'm not fully shocked, and I'm not really pressing the panic button either. I don't think you are, but I do think it's fair to say that they didn't live up to expectations this cycle.